Hey guys, T here. Today I got a new replay analysis video. This is user subscriber submitted videos that we'll be evaluating, suggesting improvements. These are people that have posted links. Where you can post the links is on my Discord. There's a section called replay analysis submissions. We're looking for kind of average type games where there's some things to potentially improve upon. So the point of this isn't to ridicule people. It's to just point out suggestions, try and look for things that they can improve, and hopefully that helps everyone involved. So first up, we got a Z-23 game on fault line. I don't think the spawns were adjusted on fault line, were they? So I think it's still an overload pattern like it is here. I'm fine pushing forward aggressively here on this side. Typically this north side, the center, and east spawns can push through the south side pretty quickly, get on base, and should have a pretty easy time winning over here. What you need to keep in mind is you have two ships spotted. You got a battleship and a cruiser. Now they only have one destroyer on their team, but we don't know where it is, and because you only have two ships spotted over here, you should be playing like it could potentially be here. Now what pushing this far forward, if the destroyer pops up, spots you, not only can the destroyer shoot at you, but these other two ships that are really close to you can hit you pretty reliably as well. So that's something you do need to keep in mind when you're pushing forward. If that other destroyer spot on the other side of the map or something, or you got pretty good reason to believe it's not over there, then that's fine. But until you recognize where all the ships are, and here we do have the missing cruiser, it turns out to be Atlanta. But until you have those ships spotted, you got to be careful. Now, I'd be pretty nervous about this ship. Luckily, it's occupied there. He did switch over to AP, got a shot off, and looks like he probably gets some for the back guns. So you got a nice citadel there. That wasn't too bad. Had the Atlanta been kind of paying attention to you, though, you could have been lights out pretty quick, though. So I would have been nervous about that, but it ended up working out. You got some decent damage on them there. And then I like that you're disengaging them, letting those ships that are back there kind of go after them. Now what you want to do, your torps are about to be reloaded, so you need to come up with a plan. Heading back to the base right now, I don't really see a reason to do that. You do have that, I believe, Gneisenau, that was last pointed towards the middle there. I would be going back towards them, waiting for that torp to be reloaded. Hopefully you pick them up, spot them, and then once that torp's reloaded, you're actually in a position to launch. Kind of how you conceptually want to visualize destroyers is every minute, minute and a half, whatever their torpedo reload is, they're able to issue a chance of doing potentially fatal damage to any ship on the enemy team. And you can enhance that chance or lower the chance by how you actually launch the torps. That's a little bit different of a concept, but every time you have torps reloaded now and you're not in a position to shoot them, sometimes it's inevitable that that's going to happen, and that's fine. But there's no reason right now that you can't be torping that ship. You're just kind of sailing away from it for no real reason. And we keep seeing widespread torps here. I would never use widespread. The only time I have ever used widespread is attacking like destroyers or cruisers within like a kilometer, you know, I mean extremely close range. Even then I still think it's a suboptimal play. I would just never personally recommend widespread torps. There's no real reason for it. They work a little bit better at extreme close range because they lessen the onus on the player that's launching the torps to have a really good salvo, i.e. they widen the margin of error. But at anything longer than extremely close range, then they just become easier and easier to dodge. Just imagine for yourself, would you rather be getting torped by someone presenting a nice overlapped tight spread with little gap in between the torps, or someone launching torps at long range with wide spreads where you end up getting huge gaps? You know, it's pretty easy in my mind to pick what you'd rather be getting torped by, and that's widespread torps. And so if the defensive player would rather get torped with widespread, that means they're the less effective choice 99 out of 100 times, at least in my opinion. So now we're moving into the Atlanta. It looked like initially you were probably moving up here to counter the enemy destroyer. There's only one destroyer per team, so I like that mentality. But again, had we pursued that battleship in the middle, we would have launched the torps. Then by the time we got into position, this Alabama, they'd be available on reload there. And if you're going to launch those torps there, you can do a trick called you just double tap the torps like you do with the guns. With dual launches like that, they'll just do a really nice, tight side-by-side spread. And you'll get about the exact same spread that you manually aim there, but they'll be basically right on top of each other, and it'll be much harder. Not that that's an easy spread to dodge, but it just makes it even that much harder. So a little bit of a trick there. Alabama does manage to sneak through there, which isn't the end of the world. When you're getting ships that are following you, trying to torp them becomes increasingly difficult. Now here, you're stopping and using the guns. I'm fine with that. I'm looking on the mini-map, making sure that you're going to have someone spotting the ship. It looks a little dicey, but as long as you have someone on your team spotting the ship, then you can definitely open up and try and light up with the damage here. The fire chance with these German destroyers isn't great, but if you're able to pen the shots, they can do some decent damage. Being that angle, there's no point in trying to load AP. If it was broadside to you, and especially at that distance, you would definitely want to flip over to AP to start peppering that superstructure. You could load them up with damage in a very short amount of time. So I'm fine with what you're doing there. Again, get these torps down. Just get them down. We're trying to launch them basically on reload, so if doing so is going to get more launches out per round, which just increases your potential damage. Here you did notice that the rainbow, the twist and track pointed over here, so that was a good awareness. But now we're not responding to that. That's a major problem. We do have presumably the other destroyers closing in on you. We don't yet know what it is. Maybe you checked before you started recording, but I don't think we've seen the map screen. So it is a Fletcher here. Your sonar is about to run out, so your main advantage is about to run out. Your smoke's about to run out, so your advantages, while present briefly, are going away. Now, he tried to blind fire torpedo. It looks like that should be easy to dodge. And you did get one torp into that backing up battleship, which is pretty lucky considering the angle that was launched at. But the Fletcher, yeah, you ended up doing a good job of that. It looks like you might have Sims. I think if you have 20k health in this, you probably have the Sims boost on your build. I might be mistaken about that, but the Z-23 versus Fletcher, it's very situational on which has the advantage, and you kind of had the advantage to start with, capitalized on it well. I just would have engaged that ship a lot sooner. Once you recognize that, because the other ship, the battleship that you're shooting at was like 6'5", 6'9", something like that away. Not that far. And once that the indicator flips, that means that other ship is closer than that. So that's 6 kilometers roughly, and presumably closing. So whether or not you knew it's a Fletcher, who knows? But the Fletcher is a very dangerous ship, and I would not, take it lightly. But either way, you just need to address the bigger threat to you, the destroyer. The backing up battleship that's being focused on by multiple people is pretty irrelevant, frankly. So let's just take a sec to analyze this game here now. So you got 3 ships on their side, plus one more probably, about to try and start capping. You have one ship trying to start capping, plus one trailing. Your team there was a big chunk of your navy that went to the far eastern side, which slows down that push quite a bit. When people do that, that kind of concedes the speed advantage that the North spawn has to get into the opposite base. So, and capture the base mode, battleships for sure I've never sent all the way east, and cruisers pretty rarely. In fact, I frankly personally would never play on the far side, at least as an opening move. It does slow the push down. But this is going to be one of those situations where it could come down to resets, and can we trust our teammates and stuff like that. So the answer usually is no. So what we got to stop doing these widespread torps here. Just what you want to be looking for when you have 3 ships in this situation is you want to click on each of them, select them all, see where the headings are, see if you can get 2 of those ships' headings to basically overlap. The closer they can overlap, then you can kind of torp that potential overlap, and you can get 1, maybe even 2 kills or 2 hits on both ships. You never know. But let's stop doing the widespread torps. Now that we see it in practice, let's see how many hits we get here. Now, torping a hipper that's coming at you, it does have sonar. Who knows if it's on or not. it's not a high percent chance shot anyways, but, and there we had AP loaded. If you're going to open fire while unspotted, be sure to make sure you have the right shell loaded. Obviously, every player makes that mistake, but just something to point out. Anyway, the Hipper scored no hits there. The battleship behind, very easy to dodge once those torps are spotted. So, just, if you're still internally debating is widespread torping or narrow spread torping better, just try and keep an eye on what the results are, both when you're playing against destroyers. Identify are they narrow spread or widespread and which one is harder to hit, and then when you're employing it there, again, a narrow spread would have still been hard because both those ships are pointed towards the direction the torps are coming in anyways, but you're going to have a better odds of actually hitting them when you tighten up those spreads. So I would just remove the narrow spread from your repertoire completely. Again, I'm sure there's some really good destroyer players that would say I'm completely wrong on that. That's my opinion, though. Here, looks like your team is attempting to cap, and again, now their team is capping. So both teams are capping, and it's coming down to resets. You're getting some resets there, which is good, but you're shooting in the open. This is a problem that you got to be very careful of. You're very low health because of some of those trades that happened very earlier on. I would shoot, get the resets. When you get 2 or 3 resets like you did on that first or second salvo, then just stop and let it start accumulating again for 30 seconds. You got to see if your team can hold off on the south. It looks like they're getting reset pretty reliably as well, but you dying here just to get... You're no longer resetting at that point. You're just trying to get more damage, and getting 200 or 300 damage is not worth you losing a quarter to half of your health from these battleships, which they have no real reason to shoot at anything else besides you at this point in time. And they're going to hit you with 1, 2, 3, 4 shells, whatever it is. You just got to assume they know how to aim, and if they prove you wrong, then you're lucky. If not, then you're prepared for it. So get the reset, then stop shooting, drop spot, reposition, let them accumulate more points, and then reset them again. You can see your team in the south is folding here, and they have no chance on capping. Now that ship that was capping your side is leaving the Nagato, it looks like, or whatever he's doing. He's not a captured threat either. So at this point, you have the points. Well, now you're down. You just lost another Baltimore ship. And yeah, these are the frustrating matches. But usually what you want to do is assume that these teammates that are outside of your field of vision, direct vision, and your field of control, just assume they're going to die. Just assume they're not going to capture that base. Like I say defending the base is the stronger play 95 out of 100 times probably. And you are staying back to defend the base, so I'm not faulting you for that, but this is kind of the reason why, even though they had a bunch of ships that were attempting to capture the base, one of them for some reason is all the way on the western side of the map now. You never know what these guys are going to try and do, and their dedication to trying to win the game is often not as reliable as your dedication. So, it's looks like you're probably going to lose on score here, and that was kind of foreseeable. What you could have done, I guess you needed to be maybe more aggressive, trying to get on the sides of these ships instead of trying to just stay in front of them and torp backwards. I know it's kind of hard to do with that island squeezing you and then the edge of the map on the north side there. You don't have a lot of room to work with in that area that you're in. I understand that, but I think if you tighten up those spreads and try and get more on the sides instead of shooting into the front of them, that's going to be your best bet. Now I will say this, that fault line north spawn, either center or east, that's really the only spawn that I can think of where my preference is to attack the enemy base from there. Again, I say I usually have a preference to clear my side and then go back and defend the base for capture the base mode. I think that's how you're going to win the majority of your games. But that fault line, assuming it didn't get changed in the patch, that north, center, and east at least in my mind, has an advantage. Now, according to their data, maybe it doesn't. But I think it's because most players don't recognize that opportunity to push through really aggressively exists there. Anyway, moving on, we have a hipper game here on Fault Line. Here we have the Norse spawn. These spawns, I think, were altered. I don't know off the top of my head where they were, but we'll just analyze this game as is. These games were submitted before the update, though. Keep that in mind. So here we have an enemy Tirpitz here. It gets slowed down, looks like, by hitting the island, most likely, or maybe it was flipping with the drive apparatus, whatever. The Tirpitz, what you want to do is look in the map here. It looks broadside on your screen, but if you look where that white line going down towards where you're aiming, that's a pretty steep angle into that Tirpitz. So the key to these German cruisers is you want to shoot AP whenever possible, but we need to be sure, once that angle is anything but flat, then those shells become very unreliable, and they become unreliable at range as well. So I don't know what build you have on here, but for German cruisers, things like Yamamoto is an inspiration, trying to enhance that AP pen. Von Mueller with his AP pen boost, stuff like that. Those are important perks. But again, looking at the angle of this Tirpitz, again, even though it looks pretty broadside on the screen, it's really probably steeper than a 45-degree angle. And you can get that clue by looking on the map. So now we switched over to HE, and you're unspotted because of this cloud. And I think you'll be even more reliably unspotted behind this island here. So you're moving in a really good position. You have 3 ships all lined up that you can potentially line up. You need to be stopping here and looking for that dip on the island in front of you. You see the island in the foreground right there? That little bowl-shaped dip. You want to be stopped behind that. Cruisers are more maneuverable than these battleships. They can start and stop faster, and they have better speed. So you can keep these ships on the opposite side of that bowl and bomb on them undetected, basically for extended periods of time. How long? You are in the driver's seat. Again, right here is another opportunity. We need to be stopping and glide. You do have to account for a little bit of a glide with the ship. So you need to stop before you want to get there. But look at these features in the terrain that you can utilize. They're good to utilize for as any class, but cruisers is kind of, right in your wheelhouse. This is what you want to be looking for, these island features where you can utilize them, fire undetected, and just pump out the damage. Now here we're continuing to use the AP. I like that, but we want to be looking at the hit indicators quite a bit and seeing what sort of results we're getting every time we pull these shots. Now these long range things, there you're getting some pretty good pens, and that target was mostly flatly broadside. You got 2 pens, 1 shatter, and 1 over pen. Pretty good results there. But with the German AP, you got to be really responsive. Again, it's your main preference. When those broadside targets are there, you got to shoot that AP. That's how you're going to keep the damage up and potentially go for some pretty good games. But as soon as those, when you're looking at the results, if they're shattering, if they're bouncing, just switch over to the HE. There we get 1 shatter. Not enough data, but I mean, you got to keep an eye on those pretty much every salvo and see what they're doing. So, Gneisenau is getting melted, that's fine. Now what you want to be looking at on the map, on this Trident map, a lot of times this north side gets swung out way to the east over here. They usually win the west. They usually win the west side, but I feel like they push too far to the west, and I feel like you guys are overloaded on the west here. Now we still don't have the objective. We're still working on clearing that out. Lightning's detected. He's within your blue circle, so that's not a very far shot. Load up HE, bomb on the Lightning, kill him. I don't know what you're looking at here. You're probably trying to reset B just in case this destroyer pops up. That Lightning, for some reason the Maz got spotted. I don't know if he got shot or if he let the other destroyer within his range. That was kind of lucky, but you were never going to get him reset anyways unless he was just at the nearest edge of that and you happened to spot him. But the Lightning was present. He was, I think, about half health if I recall. That was a potential opportunity to kill the Lightning. The Lightning, I know you know, Dragos, that it's a very solid ship, so you know the value of that. I understand trying to reset that B, but that's not going to make or break the game. Letting the Lightning slip away when you had him, That's kind of the plot of every Bond movie ever made was all you got to do is put in a little bit of effort and kill the guy that can ruin everything you've been working for your entire life. But yeah, we'll get to it later. Let's just put him in a room for now. What he got away, and he ruins the plan. So you don't want to let those destroyers get away when you got them. There we do have the Moss spot. It looks like he's dead in the water. You hit him there. Good job getting rid of him. Here we have the Otago. He's broadside on the map. Let's get that AP loaded. You're coming around. He looks like he might be turning a little bit, but I would still go ahead and load it. You never know what he's going to do. And if that, you'd rather him be angled and discharge the shot and get 500 damage than have HE loaded. Okay, so he did pull back in here. Nice shot. Looks pretty solid. He turned at the last second. You got one big hit there. That would have been a kill shot for sure had he not turned out. So good idea there. That was good job looking on the map, recognizing the target was both coming into line and he was going to be broadside, having the right shell loaded and executing. And here's some, these are probably widespread torps to keep hammering this point in. I mean, that's what it looks like on the receiving end. So whenever I personally get a destroyer or some ship shooting widespread torps at me, it's just like, oh, thank God. So, whatever. Like I say, there's probably people that disagree with me there, but looked pretty preferable to me. Anyway, Tago's coming in. I would just go ahead and keep HE loaded here. You can keep waiting for him to turn in and out and maybe get the one. Like, there he does open it up. So, if he holds that, you can kill him again. But if the ship is going to be zigging and zagging in and out of availability, again, the German cruisers, the window to hit that AP is smaller than a lot of other ships. So I would just, due to the fact that he's low and he's obviously beached himself now and everything, at an angle you can't pen, but just go ahead and hit him with the HE, hit him with the HE, hit him with the HE, and then move on. Obviously, it's the last ship. Doesn't really matter at this point. So pretty well played game overall there. Didn't end up being a barn burner in terms of damage or anything, but I think you played your side pretty well, except for that pretty glaring mistake when you let the lightning get away. But wasn't the end of the world. Just a few things to clean up here and there, and I think it'd be a pretty solid match overall. Alright, next up we have an Akatsuki game. In the description of the video it said Solo Warrior. Normally I would just throw that in the trash. I was about to, but I just gave it a quick run through and looked like it was still analyzable. If it's a Solo Warrior that's 200k damage and 8 kills, then don't even bother submitting those, please. You're just wasting my time. Maybe at some point in the future I'll do a series where we analyze viewers' really good damage games or really high score games or whatever. But that's not what this series is. I'm mainly looking for kind of average type games, as you've seen here, that just have moments that we can watch and critique and then hopefully all improve upon by watching them together. So Akatsuki, Solo Warrior, I have one, I think, that I recall. I mean, it's a very rare award. You get it for winning the game and being the last ship live on your team with at least 4 other ships on the enemy team. But as you can see here, they can arise, and that's the criteria right there. You need to win the game, have 1 ship left, and have 4 enemies on the enemy team. So it's not always a barn burner when those pop up. Here, I don't know what this map is called. I don't know. I like the map, the little bit I played, but where the typical lanes are, I don't yet know. Here you're launching 2 torps, I think, at the Megami, and then we're saving 1, I guess, for the Iowa. That's not the end of the world. Sometimes I'll do that if there's 2 low HP ships, and if you hit them both, you can potentially get 2 kills, finishing blows at once. But like we talked about earlier, the theory of we're sending out a chance to damage these ships, and we want to make that chance the highest possible. So by sending 2 salvos out one direction and 1 the other one, we're making that one at the Iowa very easy to dodge, and we're making the one towards the Megami easier to dodge. So for Akatsuki, I think good patterns are spreading all 3 of them, basically one right next to the other, creating a really long line, or sending two right next to each other, creating a two spread, 2 unit wide spread, and then one right behind them trying to hit half of each of those. So if they do hit, you're going to get some pretty catastrophic damage. Or 3 that are stacked on top of each other if you're going for a kill shot, devastating strike. Those are the good patterns in my mind. Adding additional gaps in between those patterns or staggering them, in my mind, you're just increasing the odds of them being able to dodge the torps. And I don't personally like to do that, so I would work on that spread here. Here we do recognize that we have an opportunity to capture C, and we're going for it, which is a good play. You need to have the map awareness, and those ships that you were attempting to torp / spot to the north of your position, really trying to keep them lit for your team is cool, but looking on the map, you have probably one cruiser that maybe was shooting at them and has moved towards the south of B to witness the enemy take B, I guess. So you have no support, in other words, is what I'm trying to say there. So trying to keep them lit, good thing, but making sure there's someone to capitalize on. And go ahead and shoot this, yes. Go ahead and shoot this. Go ahead and shoot this. Your guns do work in the Akatsuki. That's a kill shot. I don't know why. You should have killed him multiple times. Why is that ship not... What's the point of that? I don't get it. I understand you're trying to stay undetected. I think you probably would have been behind that island. But getting rid of that that ship, the cruiser, it does have sonar. It could potentially push into you, find you. It could turn around and shoot your buddy and triple citadel them and kill them. All you had to do is kill them shoot them once. You weren't going to miss at that range, hopefully. And then you could have just dodged one salvo from the Iowa, assuming it could spot you over that little island, which I don't know enough about that island to know if destroyers would or would not get spotted behind it. But either way, I think that's a no-brainer. Just go ahead and kill that ship there. So now we're back to, if we're trying to torp these ships, close in on them. If we're trying to spot them, recognize that nobody's shooting at them, and then move forward. I would just go ahead and move into B here. This game, we're a third of the way in. We were tied in ships a second ago. Now you're down. We're tied in objectives, or you have one currently, but they're about to flip it, it looks like. So I would get on B as quickly as possible. Go ahead and get that. If you can get that Fletcher, he's within your range. I would do something besides what you're doing here. You're just basically observing the battle, keeping these ships potentially, if that's what you think you're doing, keeping them lit. But nobody is shooting at them. Sometimes it's even better to unlight ships to remove them from your teammates' consciousness. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case in this position, but keeping them lit right now, there's no reason for it. If you're hesitant to push in them because the Megami has sonar, the Megami's sonar range, I think, is 4-4, if I want to... It's no more than 5, So as long as you're 5 kilometers away from the Megami, you're fine. Go ahead and shoot the lightning. Yep, there we go. That's good. Now, you're recognizing that you do have the island to your north blocking those ships. All you have to do is kill the lightning. You're committed to being spotted now, at least for about 10 more seconds. Keep shooting. Yep, all right. And then your teammate gets them and you drop spots. So that's good. Go ahead and get on B. This needs to be switched already. This is getting too dicey. You continue to be down a ship. We need to flip that as quickly as possible. This is probably going to come down to points. And that objective should be basically already flipped. So you kind of just got to always be analyzing, what are we trying to do, how can we win from here, and then pursue what you need to do, identify what you need to do to pursue that objective, and then go ahead and do it. So I don't know if this is just a little bit of indecision or if you're still trying to keep these ships lit. I don't think... I'll give you the possibility that you are keeping those ships lit to the north, but nobody's shot at them for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, and we're 12 minutes in the game and you have no damage. That doesn't necessarily mean you're having a bad game, but I'd be pretty concerned personally this late in the game not having any damage. You can be doing other important things like flipping caps, spotting targets, and all that, but you've only got one cap. So, and yes, you've been keeping these ships lit, but nobody on your team is in a position to do anything about it. So maybe you're keeping them on their toes because they don't see who's spotting them, so they think a destroyer is near them, and they're pushed off. But they are pushed off. They're basically irrelevant. These guys aren't affecting the outcome of the game whatsoever. The Megami pushing in is right now your biggest threat. I would get on the opposite end of that cap towards that battleship to your southwest. You don't know where that thing's going to pop around, but if it comes around the island, the Megami can kill you in about 30 seconds. So, that's recognize it's your biggest threat and get after it. Jean Bart, let's just go ahead and get these torps in. I would try and I understand if these torps get staggered where they're not all loaded at once, that sometimes you want to wait for them to reload to get them back. But I'm just noticing throughout this game, it seems like you're pretty willing to not fire them all as one unit every time, which I would always recommend doing. Fire all 3 salvos if you can. Once they get staggered like this, then they're it's hard to get them all lined up back again. And when they're not lined up, then their effectiveness, i.e. the chance to hit, goes down significantly because the size of the spreads are smaller. So, now that you do have them lined up again, when you get that target, just launch them as a unit. And then I would try and launch them as a unit, as a habit, as often as you can. So now what we need to identify in terms of this game is how do we win this. You're up pretty big in score, although we're losing ships. And what you want to do in terms of score is a battleship is a 100-point swing. So if you're up 75 points, give or take, like you are right now, if you lose a battleship, then all of a sudden you are down in score. So primarily what we want to do is hold on to B and C. That's how you're going to win the game, by score. But we need to also keep an eye on what your team's doing, how likely they are to die, which we'll just assume, well, we're losing them now here. And you see, you've had a nice lead in terms of score because your team was controlling the objectives for quite a bit of the game. They're not actually getting any points per 5 seconds, whereas you're getting 6 until they actually flip that. Now they'll be getting 3. But your gap of, the lead is growing currently. Now we can go ahead and assume we're going to lose another battleship that's a 100-point swing. So now you're down 50, and then the cruiser is probably about a 75-point swing. So now you're down 120. And I think as long as you still control B and C, you should be able to win. So really what you want to do here, I guess, is what you're doing pretty much is just sit on B. Do not let these ships get near you and hope that your team does the smart thing, which is to kill the cruisers. When players are late in the game and you recognize my team has a destroyer left, their team doesn't, next step is, do they have cruisers? Because what you're trying to do is go into the mode, we need to protect the destroyer. Assume he's not a potato at that point, assume he's valuable. And if the destroyer is just matched up with a bunch of battleships and you have the lead and score and you lose the game, something went horribly wrong, because that should not be losable at that point. But as long as those cruisers are there, that destroyer is threatened. So these other 2 ships on your team need to be looking for cruisers and trying to kill them. You need to be finding the battleship that's closest to you, send salvos to them, stay towards B, reevaluate, see who's coming in next, send salvos towards them. Just keep them off of B. And as long as you control B and C, you should be able to win on the score here. So it looks like you're doing a pretty good job. I maybe would try and get that John Bart or whatever that battleship is. I would be a little bit more dedicated to his death. He's threatening your other teammates again. We kind of think that you can win on score by losing those 2 teammates, but it'd be a lot more comfortable if you didn't. And so we only have about 3 minutes, 30 seconds left, and the score continues to grow. Their team's kind of dropping the ball. That Mayoko should be pushing really aggressively into B. I think he probably has the guy sighted above C, and the guy above C is sighted, and he's probably trying to burn him down. But the enemy team's not doing a very good job of recognizing what they need to do to win here. I think they should be able to win this game pretty comfortably, given their lead in ships and the fact that this battleship you got down here looks pretty weak, and God knows what's going on with the guy in C, but he's about to be isolated against ships that should be able to kill him. So For you, you need to be kind of aggressively, again, trying to get this battleship. No, none of their ships are identified going to be yet. You do have time to get some salvos in over here, get these battleships off this guy, and hopefully keep him alive. But even if he ends up dying, they're taking too long to do what they're trying to do. Your battleship here, just by backing up angled directly at them, is actually doing a pretty good job. So, yeah, it's an Iowa. Surprise, surprise, in the back of the map. Backing up. Now that's a good kill shot on the John Bart. I don't think he can turn out of that. So I would go start playing on that cruiser that's pursuing, or head back and scout the north and make sure they're not getting on those caps. Now with that kill, we did have a 100-point swing back in your favor, so it's becoming increasingly difficult. But then they go ahead and kill the Iowa. So I mean, it's becoming increasingly difficult to lose, but it's possible. And you being down here away from those caps is not where you need to be. You need to just make sure they can't get those caps. The Megami is not what you want to be facing one-on-one in the Akatsuki. The Megami lives to kick the crap out of you, so there goes your other buddy. And as we predicted, we're still up on score. Now, getting that battleship, you see we had the 100-point swing. So you would have been temporarily down by about 15, 20 points. But because you held those objectives, we're going to get the lead back. And because we had the battleship's lead, well, we didn't need to get the lead back. We just kind of had it. So here you are, 1v4. You do end up winning the game on score. So you get the solo warrior. So congratulations on the solo warrior. But ways to improve. Recognize your team is not responding to your efforts to spot those guys. Recognize that they are not influencing the match either, and they're basically irrelevant. So you need to capture C, you need to get on B, capture B. You need to be working on being more relevant. 12 minutes without doing any damage, I would be extremely frustrated. I would probably just record the game and see what went wrong, frankly. But, you know, you guys did end up getting the win here, but you only got the win because you guys got 2 caps early, or maybe you had 3 even, and they were just really negligent. And it was really those guys that were sitting north of C that you were spotting, and they had no impact on the match. You know, so they kind of lost the match there. You potentially drove them back by keeping them lit, and they're looking around saying, well, we must have a destroyer, you know, near us. And so that's possible. And I'm not going to begrudge you for that, but, you know. Anyway, congratulations on the Solo Warrior. Good match there. That's going to do it, guys, for these. Again, if you do want to submit replays, either join the Discord if you're not on there, and then look for the link on the left-hand side that says submit user analysis or whatever it is. And I just need you to upload it on YouTube, basically, and then I can take a look at it, and if it's something that I think will be helpful, we can potentially review it in the future. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave them below. Love to hear from you, and we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.